This is TWiT.
First, let's introduce our guest, who will be new to some of you, not to all of you. Siva Vaidhyanathan is a professor of media studies at the University of Virginia and author of a book called Antisocial Media, How Facebook Disconnects Us and Undermines Democracy. Just came out a week ago. And is a, well, I'll let Siva describe it, but it is a screed against Facebook, I guess is probably the best way to describe it. We're not just alone, because I thought I need some ammunition, and I thought this would be a kind of a great opportunity to bring in the king of techno-panic himself, the professor of, he's reading the book right now, the professor of journalism at the City University of New York, Jeff Jarvis. He's, of course, a co-host with us on Twig, at blogs at BuzzFeed, has written a few of his own books, including Public Parts and What Would Google Do. Jeff, Siva, welcome. I know you guys know each other well. In fact, we've been on shows together.
Great to be back.
Yeah.
In fact, can I just begin with a disclosure and a compliment?
Yes.
Disclosure is that my school accepted money from Facebook to start the News Integrity Initiative, but I am independent of them, as I hope I'll demonstrate. And second, I have no more favorite sparring partner in the earth, and I mean this, than Siva. Siva is always smart and rational and reasoned. He's sometimes wrong, but often right. And I could imagine nothing better to aspire to. So I'm honored to be here with you, Siva. I got the book, and I'm dashing through, and I've read about a quarter of it. And as always, it's wonderfully written, and everyone out there should buy it and then argue with it.
And well-reasoned. And well-reasoned, yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't disagree that it's a screed, although screed might imply that it's a bit unhinged. I hope it's still hinged.
It's a hinged screed.
But it was written passionately.
Yeah.
And I'm still deeply immersed. I think it's a story of a heartbreak, right? I think it's a story of good intentions gone terribly wrong. Ultimately, I think what I hope you take away from the book is that Facebook was designed for a better species than ours, and we have not lived up, and we probably can't live up to the design of Facebook, the notion that such a rich level of connectivity, such a process of algorithmic amplification, and this really powerful and effective and efficient advertising system that has, altered so many different areas of life, is just not something that we were prepared to behave well with, right? We're a huge species, and there are 2.2 billion of us operating on Facebook regularly. A good number of that 2.2 billion people are pretty bad people. And a good number of those people have figured out ways to hijack Facebook, and use it in very destructive ways, spread garbage in ways that get amplified, and target garbage in ways that hit very sensitive groups and people. It's not a story that's unfamiliar to anybody who watches this, right? It's not a story to anybody who's familiar with breaking news in the past year and a half. What I tried to do was dig a bit deeper into the ideologies and the ideas and the histories beneath it. What I failed to do ultimately is come up with a roadmap forward that I believe in.
We're all struggling with that. We're all struggling with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Before we get to, first of all, a couple of things. This is not going to be a traditional, forensics debate. Although I understand Jeff just back from Aspen, where he did in fact engage in a debate on this subject
and lost badly.
Badly or
dear.
No?
Badly.
Yeah,
badly.
What was
Jeff, I'm sorry.
What was the proposition?
You had a good team. You should have been able to.
No, you should have been on the team.
Right.
If you were on the opposite team, I would have lost worse, but it would have been fun.
What was the proposition?
Proposition was social media is good for democracy.
Well, okay. Well, this says undermines democracy, so we know which side.
Footnote: Vaidhyanathan, 2018.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but also, and in a more serious note, yesterday, of course, in some ways, this is ripped straight from the headlines because, of course, yesterday there was yet another shooting, sad to say, in a newsroom at a newspaper. And there is a Facebook connection to this because apparently the grudge that the fellow had against the newspaper goes back to his using Facebook to harass somebody, being prosecuted for that, and the newspaper reporting on it. So there, as you said, ripped from the headlines, Siva. This is there's plenty, and you start the book with plenty of examples of how Facebook has been problematic for years. But Jeff, I know you also have many examples of how Facebook does achieve in some respects.
Well, and Siva does, because he is a fair man, he lists those things. I guess my first question for you, Siva, is that it seems I had to write a book chapter recently. I don't have the attention span to write the whole book, just a chapter. And as I was thinking it through, I realized that I think that our problem is with us. It's with human behavior on technology rather than the technology itself. Aren't you more disappointed in your fellow man and woman than you are with Facebook's dashed dreams?
So two things about that. One, I don't think it's an either-or situation. Technologies are extensions of ourselves, as McLuhan reminded us. Technologies are not distinct from societies, cultures, and practices. They represent embedded values of the designers. And when they're out in the world, they represent and amplify and alter and are altered by our behaviors, everyday behaviors, right? So that's important to remember. It's never an either-or thing between human beings and technologies. After all, Facebook is full of human beings, right? It's human beings wrote the code, human beings came up with the interface, human beings designed the whole system and outlined its purpose in the world, right? And sort of launched it and promoted it, right? So human hands touched every single part of it. Human minds inspired all of it. So that's one thing. But am I more disappointed in us than I am in Facebook? Well, that's a function of expectations or a question of expectations, right? I think after the last century that we've had, and certainly the last few years, I don't have high expectations for our species, right? I'm going to move this a little bit. I don't have high expectations for our species. I think that holding societies together so we don't all start beating each other up is a hard thing to do and requires constant vigilance, processes, norms, beliefs, morals, rules, laws, and institutions that we believe in. And for a variety of reasons that precede Facebook, we have seen the erosion a lot of those norms and institutions around the world. In fact, I think the United States so far has gotten off fairly easy. We're not in as bad a situation as the Philippines are.
But don't speak too soon.
Or is, right? So, or Turkey, right? No. It's like after this week, I'm just like, I can't even begin. But, so yes, absolutely. But so I'm not so disappointed in our species because I know what we can do to each other. And here's one of the lessons of my book is I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg really conceived of the variety of cruelties that human beings were capable of, and the ways in which that human beings would quickly glom on to this powerful communicative service toward those ends.